Well, Heidi ho there,
Neighbor?
intentional streaming fan neighbors.
Oh, you home improvement us right away.
I kind of fumbled the ball, though. Well, welcome to another edition. This is the pre-draft version where we're going to go over the AFC West and then NFC West with my co-host Jarvis.
Hey, everybody.
And your howdy-ho neighbor here is Flip. You can always get a hold of us at INT StreamPod on Twitter, which is always a joyous place. Or you check us an email at intentionalstreaming@gmail.com. What do you got for us right out of the gate, Jarvis?
Yeah, so we'll start this week off with the question of the week, and this is actually something that was brought up to me today from a guy that I work with. He's in a fantasy dynasty league, and he came at me with this question because he knows I'm heavily invested in fantasy football and everything, and I'm in a dynasty league myself, but he was like, so I am in this league, and I'm trying to get and stay more active as far as being more engaged throughout the year, keeping up with news and notes, and trying to get ahead of the curve on some like potential trades and stuff like that. So his question to me was, what do you do when you are trying to be as active as you can, however other people in the league are completely checked out and they check out for 4 or 5 months, and when you try to submit trades to them or ask them for trades, they're just like, hey, his response he got back from his buddy was, we'll talk about it during football season. Well, for us, it's always football season, right?
For most true fantasy footballers,
so
it's 365.
So his question to me was like, how do you keep them engaged if they're just not wanting to?
I don't think you can. Unfortunately, this is going to be some crappy advice. If you're really active, you got to find a league that's very active, and
that's what I told him. I was like, luckily our league is pretty active for the most part.
It is very active.
We don't really have anybody that checks out in ours.
No.
And I think an active league makes for an overall more fun and more enjoyable league. And I told him that. I was like, well, you gotta evaluate and sit back from evaluate from 30,000 feet and be like, okay, are these the people that
you want to be around, want to be with?
Now, these people probably shouldn't be in dynasty leagues. They should probably be veered a little bit more towards redraft because there is
significant difference. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I didn't really have a great answer for him. Like you said, I was just like, well, maybe you need to think about trying to venture out and find a league that features players that are more invested, or
get all wild and crazy, make your own league.
Yeah.
There's always plenty of people that are looking for a very active league to get into.
Yeah, and the people that check out, they miss a lot of stuff that happens in the off season, and so there's a lot of stuff that you can learn and pick up on during the off season. And as we say, in true dynasty players don't really have an off season.
I completely agree.
So that was just asked today of me at work, and I thought it would be something to just quickly bring up.
All right, let's roll into our news and notes. Seahawks agree with Russell Wilson 4 years, $140 million, $65 million to sign, total guarantees, $107 million. I haven't read this until now. A no trade clause. Now Wilson is under contract for 5 more years and $157 million, staying in Seattle. Those are some big numbers.
He is now the highest paid player in football. Deserving?
Well, they showed this stat on NFL Network. They showed the 6 highest paid quarterbacks last year. None of them made the playoffs. So, I don't know. I mean, quarterback contracts they're out of this world.
They really are. And I mean, for what he's meant to that city, that organization, the fan base, the team, why not? Why not? I don't know, like, the whole ins and outs of it. I'm not super proficient on, like, contracts and what all it means and, overall team repercussions. But is this a big hit? Like to where I mean they've got some holes they need to fill.
Oh, well, this is okay. I also saw this on NFL Network. This year. I think it's this year that they were talking about. He will count 15% of the team's salary cap. That is a huge number.
That's huge.
Big. That when you look at that $107 million guaranteed,
I think that's probably spaced out though, right?
Well, the 107, it's going to depend on how it's all structured. My guess is that it's probably too. I didn't see his signing bonus, but I'm guessing his signing bonus was probably in the range of 30, 40 million.
Well, it says 65 million to sign, so whatever that means.
I sure wouldn't think that would be his total signing bonus.
Seems pretty high.
Yeah, it does.
But either way, Seattle's got their man for the next, 4 or 5 years.
Yes, indeed.
Vikings, hey, they signed Adam Thielen to a 4-year, $64 million contract extension. So this one's worth up to $73 million, could be up to worth $73 million with incentives and a $35 million in guaranteed money. So another big contract.
Yeah, the only thing I'm going to go on a little quick rant. I know it sucks when I do this, but when you see the $35 million guaranteed, it depends on the structure. Is it really guaranteed? Are they rolling guarantees? Is there an injury guaranteed thrown in there? The media likes to throw around this guaranteed money crap, and it's annoying because most of the time it's not truly guaranteed.
So it's kind of a generalized statement.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So we don't know the true meaning of it all, but it's a lot of money nonetheless.
And I haven't looked at either one of those contracts yet, so but I sure wouldn't think that they're truly, all that guaranteed money.
Hey, and this is good for the Vikings, team and fans out there.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got Cousins, Thielen, and now Diggs locked up for the next handful of years.
Yep.
Chris Hogan, hey, he just signed a 1-year deal with the Panthers.
I actually really like that move.
Don't mind it. They needed a deep threat on that team with presumably a healthy Cam Newton coming back, being able to chuck it deep. He likes that type of guy, so I think this fits really well. He had a lot of success when Torrey Smith was there.
Yep.
I
think that's going to be good for Newton, and I like Hogan. I'm not going to throw him deep onto the fantasy radar, but
no, but he's definitely there to keep an eye on. Mm-hmm. Zach Miller, oh man, I guess we could all kind of see this coming. So Bears tight end Zach Miller, he's officially retiring. This is nearly 18 months after that gruesome and catastrophic leg injury in the end zone.
Yeah, if you want to see something that will make a billy goat puke, that was one of those. That was one of those injuries that would do it. And if you're going to watch that, you might as well just turn around and watch Alex Smith and Joe Theismann right after.
What's funny is I didn't even watch that injury. I still have never seen the video.
Yeah.
I saw a still image of what was happening, and I was like, that's enough for me.
Yep.
So, that one, and then the Auburn gymnast who broke both of her legs
Nope.
on the
Didn't see that one.
Those two are ones I probably won't be watching anytime soon. But that poor guy, though, Zach Miller, man, ton of talent, just was so littered with injuries, and just never could get anything going.
He had 9 surgeries because of that injury. That is unbelievable.
Almost lost his life.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wow. But so I mean, good for him that he's retiring and he's walking away from it, and he doesn't have to worry about any of these more gruesome injuries.
Yeah, and I think he is 35 years old, so he's not exactly a spring. He's either 33 or 35. I don't remember which. He's not a spring chicken though. So,
cycling back to what we talked about briefly last week, as we all kind of expected, Leonard Fournette, he's not going to face any team disciplinary actions for that arrest.
No reason to.
None whatsoever.
It's just little continuing issues with him, but this is just a non-issue.
Yeah.
And Zeke Elliott gets his 5th-year tag placed on him for the 2020 season. My assumption is he does not actually play for $9.6 million that year. I think it's going to be more of a placeholder for a long-term contract.
I would agree.
Yeah, even though he's had his off-field issues, it's what he's done on the field that is worthy of some big money.
And we all know the Cowboys kind of have a reputation for looking the other way with off-field issues. So,
when it comes to talented players.
Yeah.
So, Steelers Pats Sunday night. Excited about that. There are 4 London games. I'm not sure of the times yet. Chiefs and Chargers are in Mexico City. Circle that on your calendar. We'll see how terrible that field is.
They better not have what was her name? Oh, gosh. Shakira concert there. Yeah, that's who it was. Shakira the night before.
Oddly enough, that was on the tip of my tongue. Ooh, sarcasm. Real quick, here are the bye weeks. And I know this will interest everybody. Week 4, Jets and Niners. Week 5, Lions and Dolphins. Week 6, Bills, Bears, Colts, and Raiders. Week 7, Panthers, Browns, Steelers, and Bucks. Week 8, Ravens and Cowboys. Week 9, Falcons, Bengals, Rams, and Saints. Here's the huge bye week. Week 10, Broncos, Texans, Jags, Pats, Eagles, Redskins.
Wow.
That's a lot of high-powered offenses that might be inactive that week. Week 11, Packers, Giants, Seahawks, Titans. Another week of offenses off. Week 12, Cardinals, Chiefs, Chargers, Vikings. Another big week of big offenses off for the week. Anything jump out at you real quick, Jarvis?
I just wish they would go to a more consistent bye week schedule, have the same amount of teams on a bye, and just get it over with. Like this whole idea of having 2, 1 week, 2 the next, 3 the next, and then 5 the week after that, and 4. How
Yeah.
it's, I don't know. I'm not in charge of making the schedule. I don't know how difficult it would be to manage just having like 4, 4, 4, 4, or whatever it may be. But
They actually there was. I watched this on NFL Network real quick. They had 500,000 possible schedules. They whittled that down to 5,000 schedules generated. And then they pared that down to 13 viable schedules. And they said that they didn't actually work out the schedule and finalize the schedule until yesterday. I thought that was interesting.
yeah, that's crazy.
Because they have to make sure that the venues, are available. So, all right, let's jump right into our AFC West. You wanna start us off with the Chiefs there, Jarvis?
Yeah, so the Chiefs, wow, certainly had a successful year. They, went 12-4 this year. Led by, Pat Mahomes, who had one of the greatest fantasy seasons in quarterback, from a quarterback like ever. Finished with a little over 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns, 12 picks, and he still had over 200 yards rushing. Like, that's just monstrous.
Oh, that's just sickening.
And he's just getting started. So, high expectations coming into next year? Yeah, I'd definitely say there are some.
That's probably putting it fairly mild, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm a diehard Denver Broncos fan, so it kind of pains me to know that he's going to be there for a while. But man, the kid is just good. There's really no other way to slice it. He's going to be the number 1 fantasy quarterback off the board, I would assume, in most drafts this year, and I think rightfully so.
And depending on how your league is structured, he has a legit shot at being the first player off the board. Depending on how the points are and how many quarterbacks you play with.
Yeah, if it's a 1 quarterback lead, then I would wait a long time.
Those 1 quarterback leagues.
But you're right. Depending on the league you're in, like say for example, like our redraft league, where you can start 3 quarterbacks, every week if you want. Quarterbacks go early and they go fast, so it wouldn't surprise me one bit to see Mahomes be the number 1 overall.
Number 1 dynasty quarterback in dynasty football right now, I would say.
He certainly has a lot of weapons there to utilize. One weapon, though, however, it's kind of up in the air. Like, we don't know what's going on. It's the Tyreek Hill situation. Like, does he get suspended for the domestic violence or domestic abuse charge that's been alleged against him? We still don't know anything more about that than what came out originally. But his range of outcomes could be not getting suspended at all. Everything goes away. It was dropped. It was a nothing burger to never playing again. because this one now involves a child. And that's the big one. That's the big kicker.
And there really hasn't been a lot of information out on this, so it's tough to really say. But boy, oh boy, it could be a little scary there without their big wide receiving weapon.
Yeah, and he's arguably one of the most explosive and dynamic wide receivers in the league. Mm-hmm. He could take a simple little bubble screen pass 80 yards to the house.
Yep.
Like, it's just
and plus you get his I think they're only using him on punt returns now, or maybe it's just kick returns, one of the two, and he's just so dynamic that you might get an easy 6 points out of him.
Yeah, or a lot of that would be situationally dependent. Like if they're needing a big play, then you can throw them back there. But they also had a little bit of an issue with their running back situation, as we all know from this year. Kareem Hunt leaving. What does that do? In the backfield, we saw Damian Williams come in and actually kind of showed himself to be a legit, guy back there.
Well, the funny thing with Damian Williams is they first kind of went to him and he flopped. And so they tried going with Spencer Ware.
Yeah, he was there. He was the guy, and then he got hurt, and then in come Damian Williams.
Yeah, and then it was the Damian Williams show, and he produced. And
so why do you think that is? Like a guy that's been kind of around a couple different teams. I know when he was in Miami, he was like the third or fourth back. Like he wasn't even considered for even a backup job. And now he gets his opportunity in Kansas City and much higher power offense, obviously. And then he comes in and he just goes gangbusters. So is this all Damian Williams? Is this a system? A little bit of both?
Well, one thing real quick.
Where do you target to draft a guy like Damian Williams?
Oh, that's kind of tough because you're sitting there with Carlos Hyde too. So, it's a little tough to kind of jump on the bandwagon right off the bat with a guy like Carlos Hyde who has produced, but I mean it's been 2 or 3 years since Carlos Hyde produced. One thing with Damian Williams, what I'll talk about real quick is he's always had he's never a big reception guy. 20 receptions in all his time in Miami, but that's under Gase though too. Gase doesn't know how to use running backs.
Gosh,
that's where running backs go to die. Hopefully Bell doesn't find that out, or maybe he does. But you got Carlos Hyde there, but I'm not going to be overly concerned with Carlos Hyde. I think that would be.
I'm not either, to be honest. And I think, you're right.
I with that dynamic of an offense, the only thing that worries me is his inability to catch the ball. He just doesn't catch the ball much.
So one thing to keep an eye out for is that, if the Kansas City Chiefs go out and they target a running back in the first, especially 1 to 2 rounds, potentially even the third round, that's when I get worried if I'm a Damian Williams owner.
I wouldn't be shocked to see them draft a running back in the second or third round. And how much time will he cut into Damian Williams? That's one of those things to definitely circle if you do have like a Damian Williams in a dynasty draft or dynasty league.
And real fast, just to circle back quickly to the Tyreek Hill situation. Say worst case scenario, Tyreek Hill gets suspended and it is no longer a part of the Chiefs or the NFL altogether. What do you do if you are either the Sammy Watkins owner or do you go out and try to target Sammy Watkins if you're the Tyreek Hill owner?
I think I'll tell you one thing. I think you target Sammy Watkins no matter what. I'm a Sammy Watkins fan. I mean, that's a prolific offense.
Yeah, it really is. So,
you don't get to 5,000 yards by not utilizing your number 2 wide receiver.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Ed Watkins was having a fantastic year until he got hurt last year. I was trying to trade him in a league and nobody bid, and I had to keep him, and he scored me 36 points, and I rolled that week with him.
Yeah.
And of course, Travis Kelce, is there any reason to really talk about him? He's the top tight end in the NFL, and it should remain so in the foreseeable future.
There's really not a lot to say other than
he's the man.
Yep. So Moving on over to the Chargers. They went 12-4 last year. A lot of people view Phillip Rivers as one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the league. But, this guy's never missed a game in his career. We see that happening again this year?
With the rules protecting the quarterbacks, I would say, you can't touch them. I see no reason not. 37 years old, he comes out of that same class as Big Ben and Eli, and I really say out of those three, he, they have the Super Bowls. He doesn't. That's what makes him knock. That's what makes him so underrated and doesn't get him the clout as the others.
Yeah, when you sit back and look at what his numbers and the fact that he's just never missed a game in his career, it's hard not to respect a guy like that, even though he runs his mouth and he cries and whines about every little thing. I had to get that in there.
Yeah, and see, the owners of him, like me, won't say that. No. They'll say, I don't care what he says off the field. Look what he does, from week 1 until week 16 through the playoffs. He can run his mouth all he wants as long as he's throwing 4,000 to 5,000 yards and 30 touchdowns.
And he was extremely consistent for the most part this last year. He had up until it was like week 13 or week 14 before he finally had a game where he didn't throw at least 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, and that was really surprising. That he was really that good all year long. He's very impressive.
He's got a lot of weapons, especially one out of the backfield with Melvin Gordon. He showed that he can, is a solidified bell cow back. Where does Melvin Gordon, a guy like that, can run the ball between the tackles, catch the ball in the backfield? He's obviously a top end running back. Where does that put him in the pecking order of those top end running backs?
That's really kind of a really tough question. I would say in the AFC, if he stays healthy, he's the top back in the AFC, I would say. I think Joe Mixon might lead in rushing, but Mixon doesn't get the catches like Gordon does. Connor, couldn't stay healthy and, had the same problem as Gordon last year. But the problem is, if you throw him against the NFC guys, Kamara and Gurley and
Elliott
and Zeke and what's his name down in Carolina that I'm drawing a blank on? McCaffrey, and Barkley. So where do you put him in that big mess?
Well, and I think that's exactly it. It's just a big mess. So there's arguments to be made for all of those guys as to why they would be above one or the other.
If you were going to take a running back and you had all those NFC guys and Gordon,
and even Bell.
Yeah, and even Bell. Where do you go? Can you even miss a guy there?
I don't know if you can necessarily miss, but I'm still taking a Christian McCaffrey. I'm still taking a Saquon Barkley over Melvin Gordon, but that might be about it.
Yeah, it's tough.
Kamara, maybe. I don't know, man. It's really difficult because, like I said, there's arguments to be made about either of them, and Gordon has shown that he can absolutely be a threat to be, top 3, if not the overall best running back as far as fantasy.
Yeah, if he can stay healthy,
yep.
I would easily say the 2,000 to 2,200 all-purpose is definitely reachable for him. In that high-octane offense.
Yeah, and hey, man, health issues is no stranger to this next guy, Keenan Allen. My goodness, this dude's exploded over the last couple seasons, especially after his last, the lost seasons before that.
Yeah, the 2 ACLs back-to-back years.
Yeah, he's definitely shown he could be a top 10 wide receiver. Could he get up into that top 5, you think?
I'm a big Keenan Allen fan. He was a guy who I targeted in our initial dynasty draft. That was the first year of his first ACL, of course, I think. No, he was just coming off because he fell to the 3rd round when I got him. And of course I lost him right away. But I think I really do. I think that they don't really necessarily have a number 2 wide receiver that's
On that team?
they got Mike Williams.
Oh,
but
I like him a lot.
you like him a lot? Yeah, okay.
I
You like him
do.
better than me.
I am a big Mike Williams fan. I tried to get him this offseason. Just wasn't happening.
I think the only thing that's going to keep Keenan Allen out of that top 5 mix is if they dedicate too much time to running the ball.
Which they could do, take some pressure off Phillip Rivers.
Mm-hmm.
What about their tight end situation? What can you tell about?
I love this guy too, Hunter Henry. Big, huge Hunter Henry fan. I would be more excited about Hunter Henry if he could. I don't know.
Play a game?
Stay out of the tub. This is a guy who I really think can get into that upper echelon of tight ends.
He certainly has the talent and the potential to get up there. It's just he needs to be on the field, and that's his biggest knock. I mean,
he had 62 receptions the year before, but last year I saw that they only between Gates and their other tight end, who I'm drawing a blank on, they only had 48 receptions between the two of them. So, he's gonna have to uptick into that 80 range, to.
Yeah, they just completely went away from him when Henry went out early in the year. Then they brought in Virgil Green. I think
Virgil Green. That's it.
And he came from Denver, and he's primarily just a blocking tight end. Like he wasn't really ever a threat to get out there and catching balls, but. And Antonio Gates obviously aging, and he's a red zone threat, and that's about it. So they didn't have a lot of options there. And if they can get a healthy Hunter Henry there, man, that's just another explosive weapon to add to their arsenal.
I completely agree. And they play against the Chiefs in that division, and if the Chiefs are a little bit down, that opens up that division all for them. Moving on to the Kansas City Chiefs. Denver Broncos.
I was going to say, we just talked about the Chiefs.
6-10 last year. Ooh, what's this? No fantasy relevant players. So because of that and time constraints, we move on to Oakland? What?
Funny guy over here.
I was really hoping you were going to read that.
I wasn't going to read that.
Oh. Okay. So I'm teasing my co-host Jarvis a bit because of him being a Broncos fan. So I suppose we'll just have to go over. And I didn't put any notes on it, so we're gonna do some winging it here, which is perfectly normal for us. So Joe Flacco, do you expect them to take a quarterback in the draft?
I very well do. I highly expect that to happen. Us picking at 10, I expect us to move up. I don't count that out of the realm of possibilities for us to move up. If the Giants pass on Haskins, then maybe we do. I'd like to see Haskins go to Denver. But by all accounts, a lot of mock drafts have Denver, picking up Locke. But we all know how mock drafts work. They're never, ever, ever right.
There's a lot of talk right now saying that Haskins is a byproduct, and this is something we'll talk about next week, that Haskins is a byproduct of the media, that, the scouts and the organizations aren't that high on him. And some actually are saying now that he's going to be the 4th quarterback off the board.
I have been hearing a little bit about that, but I watched film, and he's passing the eye test for me.
Yeah, and for me too, when we went through that.
And but, if we can get a guy, whether we get a Locke or whether we get Haskins, I'm not super high on like a Daniel Jones or anything like that, but obviously whoever we get is going to sit there and he's going to park his butt on the bench and he's going to learn from Flacco.
Yeah. I honestly, I'm not going to be absolutely too shocked if they don't draft a quarterback.
If there's a guy like Devin White there at 10, oh, it's over. They're taking him. It could be a best available situation at that point.
Flacco, he's only 34. He's had his injuries, but he's had some good years. He's a steady quarterback. He's got that big deep ball, which kind of fits into Denver.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a very young wide receiver core, and now Emmanuel Sanders is slated to come back. They picked up his option. So whether he can bounce back from an Achilles injury, which is very difficult to do at his age and at that particular position. Mm-hmm. So what happens there? I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. But, we've got Cortland Sutton and Deshaun Hamilton there. Really young guys.
Yep, both 2018 draft picks.
Yeah.
Second round for Sutton and fourth round for Hamilton. And I know you're a big Hamilton fan. I didn't get to watch enough of Hamilton last year. Deep threat guy.
No, not really. He's a slot guy.
Sorry, I meant slot guy. My bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Deshaun Hamilton's a great slot guy. I mean, you give him the opportunity, I think, and some experience. He can really. He's got the potential in my eyes to really make an impact in this league. He's an extremely precise route runner, very good hands, quick. I'm a big fan. Obviously, Cortland Sutton, I think, is a beast, and he's got some learning to do, but he's got the body size very similar to a Demaryius Thomas, which is, I think, why they really like him. But the thing here, also to keep in mind, is that 10, don't rule out the fact that we could go tight end and grab one of those Iowa boys. I would prefer Fant myself, but Flacco over his career has traditionally been a guy who hyper targets the tight end position.
Yeah, because you can't feel good about going into the season with any of those tight ends. Let alone not only being your NFL team, but boy oh boy, you wouldn't want any of those guys on your fantasy team. Not for your tight end one, of course.
No. So it'd be pretty cool to see one of those Iowa boys go, especially Fant. I'd be thrilled with that too. But and then the running back situation we got Phillip Lindsay coming off of just a monstrous rookie campaign. Obviously, we all know the story there. Undrafted rookie, free agent, didn't get invited to the combine, comes in, works his tail off, makes a 53-man roster, works his way up to the starting running back position, and works his way into a Pro Bowl.
And unfortunately, he sustained that bad wrist injury, at a very, very crucial time.
Yes, it was. Not only for the team, but for fantasy championship playoffs.
I'm kind of staring at my co-host here because he had Mr. Lindsay and
I lost by just a couple points.
And Hamilton, and Lindsay got hurt, and that was it.
That was it.
And I got the trophy sitting on the bookshelf downstairs.
But Lindsay was he just came out of his hard cast. Things are looking good.
What's his health? He's going to be ready for week 1?
Things are looking good. Things are looking that way. Yep. He's not putting a timetable on anything like that, but from what the reports are showing, everything's trending in the right direction with little to no worries for next year.
Do you see Freeman or Booker pushing for playing time? I know you're a Freeman fan.
I am a Freeman fan. I think the only person that could really push for, I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking there because in Denver they were using Devonta Booker as their third down back when Royce Freeman's completely capable of that. Phillip Lindsay, for the most part, kind of is, but surprisingly they didn't throw to him hardly at all. So. Whether Booker's just a vulture to me at this point, taking opportunities away from Lindsay and Freeman. So I don't see either of them really eating into Lindsay's time. Elway loves Lindsay, and until Freeman can come in there and prove that he's anything but, kind of a mild disappointment, I expect Lindsay to be the main guy.
Yeah, and Lindsay had 35 receptions last year. That's really not that far away from, not really that far away from talking bell cow numbers there.
Yeah, for sure.
You talk on another 15, 20 or so, and that's definitely bell cow numbers that you're really getting around to. And, over 1,000 yards rushing last year. He only started 8 games, but he did play in 15. So, I mean, he did have a good year.
He did.
I was one of the lucky ones to grab him in another dynasty league, and I'm a little concerned, but he's my number 2 guy. I'm not that
number
concerned.
2. He's an excellent number 2. Gosh, he's a good number 1 for a lot of people.
Well, those are just average players.
Yeah. Speaking of average and below average, let's talk about those Raiders.
Let's talk about way below average. Oh, boy.
The Raiders.
4-12 last year. John Gruden keeps the rebuild going in Oakland. He's got, 9 more years to go?
Yeah. Yep.
So Derek Carr, are they going to draft a quarterback?
I think they're looking at it.
Do you think they'll grab one in the first round?
If they do, they've got 3 first-round picks, so they could go any direction.
But they got a lot of holes,
That's the thing. Is with those first-round picks comes the departure of some folks, right, that they could use. So you don't just get those first-round picks. You have to give up something to get those. And they gave up a lot this year,
Yeah.
And but they still got the 3 first-round picks. They went out. They got Antonio Brown to help out their wide receiver core. They signed Tyrell Williams, which I think was a big addition, to help them out because they had absolutely nothing last year other than Jared Cook,
He's gone.
And he's gone. So they've got holes in the running back position. I think they need to fill. They've gotten rid of a couple of their offensive linemen. Defensively, they need a pass rusher. They gave up a notable one in Khalil Mack.
Yeah.
So they definitely have a lot of holes, but I think that the quarterback position is a position that I think that they're looking to potentially go out and grab a guy and start to develop.
This is going to be interesting because Gruden is one of those guys that wants to have his own quarterback. Wants to have it his show.
Right.
Derek Carr, he had like a 68 or 69% completion rate last year and threw for 4,000 or 4,500 yards. That isn't like trash. I mean, yeah, a lot of it was probably garbage time being 4-12, but he only had 19 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, which not good. Not for, that many yards. So I think he sticks with Carr. I do. I think he's going to. If they draft a quarterback in the 3rd round, I would just say, who cares? One of my favorite quarterbacks is Mike Glennon. He's still there. Maybe he'll actually get the real chance.
Still on the Glennon train.
Yeah. I gave up on him. Poor guy. Antonio Brown. Oh boy, is he going to be a nightmare for them? He complained. He complained about getting fed the ball in Pittsburgh while he was still happy with his contract. So, he's sitting on this massive, highest paid wide receiver again, or did Beckham take it? However, he's making $18 million a year. But is he going to get enough targets? Are they going to force feed him the ball?
I think everything's going to be hunky-dory for a little while, and then he's going to get out there and actually have to play with this team. And given what's happened the last handful of months, I just don't see how we can be optimistic that it won't go bad. But,
yeah, I think it's kind of going to end in a train wreck, whether it's this season or shortly after. But will Antonio Brown be a top 5 wide receiver this year, Jarvis?
No.
I'm going to go with you there. I mean, he's got the talent, but the team just doesn't have the talent.
Mm-hmm. And we've got a lot of young guys that are stepping up and consistency guys like Julio. I just don't see a top 5 out of them.
You brought up Tyrell Williams, and I like Tyrell Williams too. He averaged 690 yards in the past 2 years. Is this his ceiling in 2019? Is he going to break that?
I think so. I think I could see him getting in the 800 to 900 yard range.
Ooh, that's a lot of yards.
I like him. I think he's going to fit really well in that offense. You're going to draw a lot of attention away from him onto Antonio Brown. And Tyrell Williams is a guy who's known for his big play-making abilities. So,
well, if they don't have a pass-catching tight end there, which brings us to the next point, their tight ends that they have is just, oh man.
And I expect them to make a move in that first round and maybe grab one of those good tight ends that are out there.
Lee Smith.
Yeah.
Derek Carrier, Luke Wilson. I'm not even going to go over the last two because never heard of either one of them.
Yeah.
So these guys are absolute nobodies, and you definitely don't want them. I just couldn't see them trotting any of these guys out there, week one, for any kind of pass catching threat. So that's why I think it's really going to put a lot of pressure on, unless they grab one of the big tight ends in the draft. It's going to put a lot of pressure on, Tyrell Williams to get over that 700-yard mark. And
I'm a big fan. I definitely can see 800 yards out of him this year.
That's a lot of yards for a number 2 wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
So their running back situation's a mess. I also expect them to. I expect them to take tight end and running back in this draft. Do you see that?
I definitely see that too. Okay. I was going to hit that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean Jalen Richard, Dwayne Washington, not the answers. I'm assuming Lynch is. He hasn't made up his mind yet. He said he's going to wait after the draft to announce, but gosh, I mean, you can just all but. I'm expecting him to be done.
Yeah, I am too. I don't think the muscle hamster has gone anywhere, has he?
I don't.
Or maybe
think
he
so.
did. I don't remember. So anyway, I think their top 2 running backs is Jalen Richard and Washington.
And that's not going to cut it.
No, it's not. It's not. Richard's
He's a fine compliment.
Richard's a great third down back. 68 receptions last year for 607 yards. So his role could even expand. He's definitely a draftable running back there.
Mm-hmm.
For a flex guy. Your third running back. Definitely a guy to really be looking at, depending on what kind of guy they draft.
Which we're assuming they will.
Yeah. Let's head over to the NFC West with Seattle.
Yeah, let's just move up north a little bit there. The Seahawks, they finished 10-6 last year, did make the playoffs, but then they lost to the Cowboys in the first round, 22-24. We all remember that. Russell Wilson, we hit on earlier, 4-year contract extension. I mean, they love him up there. They want him to spend the foreseeable future up there, which I think is a good move for him. But at what cost? Like you had said earlier, 15% of
their cap.
Wow,
that's huge. And that's for a guy that sometimes gets a little reckless on thinking that he's 6'4", thinking he's Cam Newton when he's not.
And this is another team with a lot of holes that need to be filled. Mm-hmm. I mean, we got Doug Baldwin, their primary receiving target, their number 1 guy for a long time. He's just not healthy. He wasn't healthy at all last year, and he's come out and said that he's going to still require some future surgery. So, I mean, what do we expect out of him?
Oh, I don't think you can make any kind of determination until I think he's got 2 more surgeries slated. I think that makes 4 for the offseason. For me, if I was drafting before I actually found out how healthy he is, and I'm going to assume that's probably not going to happen until July, I might actually just remove him from my draft board and say, no, can't draft him.
Yeah, you can't put a lot of confidence and stock into him quite yet. Like you said, this is going to be a waiting game. I don't. If you're an owner of Doug Baldwin, do you try to shop him now? I don't think that the market's going to be high enough to get what you want out of him.
Yeah, I don't think he's got enough value to actually trade him.
You're going to have to hold him for now.
Yeah, you do, and that's unfortunate because he has had plenty of good years in him. He's had. Let me see. He's had. I guess he's only had 2 years over 1,000 yards.
He's got a lot of receptions. He's a PPR guy.
Yeah. 7. He had only 50 last year, 75, 94, 78, 66. It's still quite a few. But when he had his 78, he had led the league in touchdowns at 14.
Yeah, I remember that.
He is a good touchdown guy. 14, 7, 8. Even on the limited time and being hurt last year, he still had 5.
Now, if you got a good wide receiver core on your fantasy roster, like there's nothing to say that you can't go try to target him and snipe him off someone for real cheap, and in the hopes of him coming back and making a pretty good comeback.
Yeah,
but
you got to be deep to do that.
You have to.
I mean, I don't think you can't count him being one of your top 3 wide receivers. I don't think you can take that kind of a chance.
No, and I mean their top receiver this last year was Tyler Lockett. Now, do you think that was because he took a step up, or was this basically just because of a lack of options around him, including the Doug Baldwin health issues?
I would really say it's because of the lack of other options to be throwing to. I'm not a huge Tyler Lockett fan, obviously, with my statement there. Last year he only had 57 receptions for 965. Yeah, he did have 10 massive touchdowns, and that's 16.9 yards reception. He's just kind of a Mike Wallace guy. He's kind of a Deshaun Jackson type of guy.
He's a smaller guy too, so like he was playing in a role for the most part of the season that he wasn't really used to. I mean, they were splitting him out, but he was making it work. So,
yeah, he's a 5'10" guy. The only problem is, boy, he just has times where last year he had 3 receptions for 13 yards, 2 for 34, 3 for 22. That's a 3-week span. I mean, that makes it tough to start a guy like that week in, week out.
But if you got him last year, you drafted him,
yeah.
Odds are you drafted him pretty low, and he far exceeded your expectations.
Yeah.
So I think it was a big win for him and all the fantasy owners out there that got him late in the rounds.
Yeah, I would expect. I wouldn't expect what he did. Would I be surprised if he had the amount of yards? Maybe a little high. Receptions, I would probably say about the same. I sure wouldn't expect 10 touchdowns out of him this year.
It'd be pretty tough to replete, especially if they address the wide receiver position.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be too surprised if they didn't do that during the draft. Due to their lack of depth. I mean, they got David Moore, Jerron Brown, who Jerron Brown really kind of fizzled down in Arizona. And then they have the rest of the team is nobodies.
More impressed though. I kind of dug him towards the end of the year, man. He had some pretty big games and came up with some pretty clutch catches at some times, and again, this is a guy that wasn't on anybody's radar, and because of the injuries, like he stepped into a role, and I think that he did really, really well.
I remember him having one. Oh yeah, he did have a 100-yard game, but that was kind of like the middle. Right after he had that 100-yard game, he went the next 2 games without a reception.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Ouch.
So, he had 4 catches for 97 yards in week 7, and then followed that up by 2 and 16, 1 and 16, 4 and 57, and then that 4 for 103 and a touchdown. But then 0-0. 1-1-2 to finish out the year, so he showed, but towards the end of the year, they didn't use him.
So one of the guys on their team that they spent a lot of draft capital in last year was Rashad Penny, and they really didn't use him a lot this year either. So
boy,
what are we looking to get out of this Seahawks backfield with Chris Carson, Rashad Penny?
I was a big fan of Penny before last season, and I was just blown away that it was the Chris Carson show.
And he took it and ran with it. He ran really, really well. Now,
yeah.
They also had Mike Davis last year, who played a lot, in the absence of Chris Carson when he got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
But now he's in Chicago.
Yep.
So it's kind of Chris Carson, Rashad Penny. Like, do we see a complete, timeshare back there, or is it mostly Chris Carson?
Oh, see, I would love that because I did trade for Penny in this offseason, I didn't really want him. I just kind of got him thrown.
It was a package deal.
Yeah,
it was like, I'll throw in this guy too.
Throwing Penny, and it's like, okay, I'll take him. And Penny's just going to go to my taxi, which I think really you kind of almost have to do for another year with him.
Yeah.
I think I don't think it's going to be a timeshare. I think it's going to be the Chris Carson show.
I would 100% agree with you.
Yeah. The only thing that hurts Carson is, he doesn't have the receptionist, but he's coming off an 1151 yard year, 9 touchdowns. He hit the ball, almost 250 times.
Yeah.
But Mike Davis carried the ball 112 times, so there is room. There is going to be room for Penny. I mean, they ran the ball, as a team, almost 450 times.
Yeah, that's absolutely a run heavy or run first offense there.
Could Penny get close to 200 carries?
Ooh, that's asking a lot.
Yeah. I mean, Penny had 85 and Mike Davis had 112 last year, and then Carson 247. Boy, I really don't think they're going to run the ball as much. I just don't think so. I think they're gonna pass the ball more, and we'll see if they have the weapons to actually, pull that off.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I said, we talked about earlier. I mean, man, they've got a lot of holes in this team overall. They lost a lot on the defensive side, so their defense had primarily been what was keeping them in a lot of those close games. And Russell Wilson's ability to make those big plays were able to kind of catapult them into that win, into the win category that was on those games. So, wow, this is going to be an interesting team to watch. But they've always seemed to exceed expectations.
Yep.
Somehow. So
let's jump right into the 49ers. San Fran finished 4-12, missed the playoffs. It all started Jimmy Garoppolo tearing his ACL.
My guy.
Your guy.
I love Jimmy G, man.
My guy, who I say is way overrated. Overrated.
I like Jimmy G, man.
Yeah. And his 7 career starts that he has. Nah, I'm not a Garoppolo fan.
No, I know you're not. But when he was starting
for those 7 starts,
he was producing, and he showed that he was a very capable quarterback. And this year he's going to come. He's coming back. He should be good to go from week 1 on. And you throw him in with. I mean, we had an injury-ridden team last year with Jerick McKinnon tearing his ACL. So he gets McKinnon back. Jimmy G comes back. You got a top 3, top 4 tight end in George Kittle there. Tevin Coleman gets moved over there, gets traded over to the 49ers, and what is a crazy 4-headed monster running back committee, which it sounds like they're going to keep going into the year. So there's some weapons on this team, and there's some optimism, and especially given the fact that they've bolstered their defensive side, bringing in Quan Alexander, D Ford, and based on the draft, they could easily go out and get a Nick Bosa. So the defense looks like it's going to be pretty solid, which is going to help out the offensive side quite a bit. So, like I said, the 4-headed running back committee, McKinnon, Breida, Coleman, Mostert, what can we expect there?
Well, I wouldn't expect much out of Mostert there. He's going to be buried on the chart. Boy, I was actually pretty shocked to see Coleman go there.
I was too.
Coleman had a bad year last year. Really didn't get paid much.
That was his own fault.
Yeah.
I mean, that was his year to shine. I mean, Freeman goes down. It's like, okay, I'm in a contract year. I'm going to be playing for my future, and he does really very little.
Yeah, really cost himself, just a ton of money, and of course, last year you had McKinnon, missed the whole year. So, I have McKinnon in one of our leagues, and I'm definitely not thrilled about it.
Well, and I don't, as Tevin Coleman owners, as McKinnon owners, you got to be a little bit disappointed because if you look at it, like I view McKinnon and Coleman as very similar. In fact, Matt Breida very similar. These are all guys that can run the ball and then catch the ball too. So,
and you got to be really disappointed being a Breida owner because he did have a good year. In 14 games last year, 153 carries, he had 814 yards and 5.3 yards per carry. 27 receptions for almost 10 yards a reception. Those are stout, solid numbers.
Absolutely. And that's all going to get just muddied, this year. So
I mean, this makes Bill Belichick's backfield look, clear, clear as, clear water. I'm drawing a blank on stupid analogy.
It's a great one.
Yep. that'll be one that they're writing in,
it's as clear as clear water. Oh, I love it.
So you have Socrates and Plato, and then there's Flip with clear as clear water.
But no, I get your point. I get your point, and it's well taken. Because again, wow, what do we? And like I said, Shanahan came out and said that he's not opposed to carrying all 4 into the season. Yeah. So, wow.
I would almost. Okay, if you had your choice, who are you going to take?
I'm still going to go McKinnon. I wouldn't be enthused about having to make that choice, but it's really unfortunate because going into last year, I mean, McKinnon skyrocketed on everybody's draft board.
Yep.
And he never got a chance to see and to show what he can do in this offense. So maybe it's one of those things that,
Yeah.
But do you think that the big winner in all this, with Jimmy G coming back, do you think that a guy like George Kittle, who's already, a top 5 tight end, played with 3 different quarterbacks this year, if he can get a healthy Jimmy G for the whole year, can he take a step even further forward?
Oh, no, because it's Garoppolo throwing to him.
Jeez.
He'll be lucky to be in the top 20. No, but seriously, yeah, he should be a security blanket for, Garoppolo. Easily in the top 5 tight ends where he shakes out. I don't think he's going to catch Kelsey. I don't think he catches Ertz either. But
I think I would agree with that. I think he's probably got tight end 3 potential for sure.
Yeah.
What about the wide receiver situation? We got a lot of Dante Pettis owners out there. What can they expect?
Oh, well, I want to talk about Jason Bourne. Kendrick Bourne.
Oh, here we go.
That one was intentional.
Okay.
That goes back to the other ones that I make fun of. The wide receiver situation. Dante Pettis being the number 1. I'm not up for it.
Pierre Garçon, is he coming back?
No. We got on our depth chart. We got Jordan Matthews, Marquise Goodwin, who I might probably like.
I like Goodwin a lot.
Yeah. They have Trent Taylor, who I think is more of a
slot.
Is he a slot guy?
Yep.
Okay, I was thinking so. Yeah, he's just a little guy at 5'08".
This is the landing spot I was really hoping for Antonio Brown. I thought he would have fit really well in this system.
It would have been interesting. I don't think Shanahan wanted to deal with that, though.
I don't. Yeah, I wouldn't either.
Goodwin, he's only 5'9". Jordan Matthews. Boy, how old is Jordan Matthews even? And he's 6'3", so he's the big guy. Jordan Matthews is only 26.
Yeah.
Well, by golly, I sure thought he was older than that.
Seems like he should be.
Yeah. Jordan Matthews has the pedigree, and would kind of fit in a Shanahan offense, being the bigger guy. So, if I had to take a wide receiver, I think I would probably go Jordan Matthews.
Really? Over Goodwin?
Over Goodwin.
Over Pettis?
Yep.
Wow, that's crazy talk.
I'm going to go out on a limb. I think they do need a wide receiver there though. I'm not sold on Pettis, and I'm not overly sold on Goodwin.
And they're definitely not going to take a receiver at 2.
And they're definitely not going to take a wide receiver at 2.
No.
I think that's the master of the obvious statement there.
That's right. That's right.
But when Pettis he played in 12 games last year. 27 catches. Goodwin, 23 catches in 11 games as well. They haven't shown anything. So I'm gonna go on a limb. I'll go Jordan Matthews, and I will take Jordan Matthews as a number 3 wide receiver. Even I'll go that far out on a limb.
What?
Yep.
That's your 3rd overall, like on your team?
Yep. I'll take him as my
starting him every week.
Yep. I'll take him as my 3rd one. Yep.
Wow.
I'll go out on a limb right now.
That's a big limb.
Yep. I'm a big guy.
Wow.
So I need a big limb.
Whew. All right. Well, now that I'm completely at a loss for words, let's move on to the Los Angeles Rams. They went 13-3 last year. Obviously, they made the playoffs, and went on to play in the highest scoring Super Bowl of all time, unfortunately losing to the Patriots with a score of 13-3. Yeah, that was obviously laced with a lot of sarcasm. But they made it there nonetheless. And a lot of it was on the backs of the running back, Todd Gurley. However, we did see towards the end of the year that there was something off about him, and he wasn't being used nearly as often as much as what we were used to seeing, but there was no reports of that coming out. They were kind of really quiet and hush-hush on that whole situation. Come to find out, yeah, he did have a knee injury at the end, after the Super Bowl and everything like that. But McVay did say, hey, there's no need for any off-season surgery. So, hey, that's a good sign. But,
what they're talking about there is that he's got arthritis in his knee already. And
so is that a big concern for you?
Yeah. If I was a Gurley owner, I'd be worried long-term with him.
It's not what you want to hear out of
like J.J. J.J. had arthritis in his knee coming out of college, and I don't believe he's got a suitor right now.
And last I checked, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure the knee is kind of important for a running back.
Yeah. They use him a lot.
Yeah.
We'll put that quote right up next to the Clearwater thing.
Yeah, not in the same way that Kaepernick does, but sorry.
I would still put Gurley up there. This year we'll see until he really shows signs.
Top 5, right?
Yeah, top 5, absolutely. Top 3. Those top 5 guys. Boy, there's just a slew of guys. I mean, there's 6 or 7 guys that could be anywhere from 1 to 7. Like we kind of talked about before. Then we come into Cooper Kupp, coming off his ACL. You're a brand new spanking, 5th, 6th, 7th wide receiver on your team this year?
Yeah, was actually approached with a trade offer today, and I decided to take it. So I was able to land Cooper Kupp. This is a guy that I drafted his rookie year, and because of a roster faux pas and a mishap on my part, not keeping him on my taxi, I was forced to trade him away last year, which kind of was sad. It kind of hurt me inside a little bit.
Sniffles,
not gonna lie.
Sniffles.
Yeah. But hey, I was given an opportunity to get him back, and I'm welcoming him with open arms. He's a great PPR slot guy, very, very heavily utilized in that offense, and we didn't really fully understand the importance and the magnitude of his role there until he went down. So, we got a wide receiver core there that's got Brandon Cooks and Robert Woods,
my guy,
and Cooper Kupp. So, wow, a terrific 3-headed monster there. And when he went down, we saw the emergence of Josh Reynolds and a couple other guys from time to time, but nothing as consistent as what Cooper Kupp was able to lay out there.
I'll stick up for Robert Woods here.
Oh, no. I'm not talking about.
You're talking at the position.
Yeah.
Okay. My bad.
And we know that Goff and Kupp are super, super close friends. They actually were roommates for a long time. So there's obviously a good relationship there. So I'm very excited to get him back on my team.
How does the wide receiver core shake out there? So obviously all three of them are worth owning.
For sure. For me, strangely enough, I still think that's probably, if in the order of guys I'd want to own, I'd probably still go. It's a toss up between Woods and Kupp, and then Cooks.
And see, I'll go a little opposite there, which should probably not come as any kind of surprise.
Not at all.
I'm definitely going to go with
Cooks.
Yeah. No. I'm sorry. I'll go with Woods and then Cooks, and then Kupp.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I see more consistency out of Woods and Kupp than I do with Cooks, because at the end of the year, when you look back, you'll see Cooks has put up monster numbers, like, over 1,000 yards and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And he ranks high up there in the wide receiver category, but his consistency is what's always been a knock for him, I feel.
And, the thing is, if you kind of look at this and Kupp had 40 receptions, and that's through 8 games. So you double that, and you're looking at 3 wide receivers that very well could be over, 1,000 yards. Woods came in at 1219, and Brandon Cooks came in at 1204.
That's just crazy.
86 and 80 receptions each. So we could easily see 3 over 1,000.
Yeah, absolutely. And one place that we won't see high production is that tight end position out of the Rams. They just don't use that.
Yeah, and that's disappointing for me, because I'm actually a big Gerald Everett fan.
I am too.
And he only had 33 catches last year. They just don't use him. And this is a guy I wanted the Steelers to draft, because
I think that if he goes to the right situation, he could be a formidable guy. So. Last but not least, we're going to round out the tonight's show.
I got it. Oh, you weren't trying to make the pun, right?
No.
Okay.
Arizona Cardinals flip. What do we know about them?
I believe they obviously missed the playoffs last year.
Going 3-13 doesn't get you there?
No, not you. I don't think so.
But hey, is there optimism in Arizona?
I think there's confusion. Right now, you kind of have the head coach wanting Kyler Murray, and you have the GM saying, "Well, I don't know what's going on." This is the lying season. You can't believe a damn thing anybody says. But what I think you can believe is that Kyler Murray is going to be on that very first card handed Roger Goodell.
I agree.
Next Thursday. Now the question will be, will Josh Rosen still be a Cardinal at the time? I don't think he should be. I think that makes a very bad situation if week 1 and Josh Rosen is there.
I think that if it weren't for the NFL would get like super upset at the Cardinals and being like, no, you're not making this trade yet, because we want the mystery of who's going number 1 overall. If they trade away Rosen right now, everybody knows it's Kyler Murray, right? Yeah. So they want to try to still keep that anticipation and the excitement up as best they can.
They're holding it up in the league office saying,
yes,
there's something wrong with the contract.
Cardinals are going to take Kyler Murray right away, and Rosen's going to get traded away.
Yeah.
So that's just the way I feel it's going to go, and I'm sure most people out there would kind of agree with me. But so that asks this question: where does Rosen go?
There's so many points, saying that he's going to be going to Washington, and who's generating those rumors? Is that coming from Washington? Is that coming from Arizona? Is it coming from the agent? Where's that? Is it coming from Washington media wanting Rosen? Where's it really coming from? It's not like Rosen tore it up at 55.2% last year and, 14 interceptions and 11 touchdowns. I know this guy was highly drafted and
I'm opposite of you. I'm kind of like, I don't mind the kid. You know, he's got a lot of talent. He was highly drafted for a reason. Now, he's still a very young kid, and he's got a year of experience in the NFL. And if the Washington Redskins, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, are picking at 15, so what's to say they don't trade the 15th overall to move up and get a guy who has that experience and who's better than any of the other quarterbacks, presumably, other than Murray or whatever, maybe Haskins. I don't know. Like, is there a better option for them if they wait and they draft a rookie at 15 versus going out and getting Rosen?
Well, if you believe what's coming out of some of the media now, saying, talking about Haskins possibly going at 15 now.
I've learned to distrust the media a long time ago.
Or and that they're the ones saying that it's the coming from the NFL personnel. So.
But let's not forget where all this hype is coming from and why we're in this situation to begin with. Arizona Cardinals, they bring in Cliff Kingsbury, as their head coach. And this guy was obviously a great quarterback at Texas Tech back in college. So he's a very quarterback-minded, offensive-minded head coach that comes in
in the college ranks.
Yeah, and he said a long time ago, before, like, what, 3 years ago, 2-3 years ago, he's like, yeah, if I'm a head coach and I've got the opportunity to take Kyler Murray, I'm taking him, no questions asked. And now here he is.
I fully expect this to happen. 1 year after going 10th overall last year, and now all of a sudden getting shipped out for potentially a second round pick. I don't think Arizona's going to get somebody to bite on him.
I think
for a first rounder. I just don't. I think Rosen looked so bad last year.
But he was a really bad team, though.
Yeah.
And with a bad head coach and a bad offensive
but you got Larry
team.
Fitzgerald.
You do. But they also had David Johnson, who they didn't utilize. So that's another question.
Not utilize. Lucky.
You bring in Kingsbury with the change in the offensive, side of the coaching staff. What does this mean for David Johnson? Can David Johnson owners out there get excited about the potential of David Johnson being the David Johnson from 2 years ago?
I'd be more worried about that offensive line holding David Johnson back. That's one thing. He had 3.6 yards per carry. Yuck.
Yeah, but he didn't have a fantastic offensive line when he blew things up 2 years ago.
I'd have to really look back to see. Well, it'd be 3 years ago when he.
3 years ago.
Because he broke his wrist
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yep. My apologies.
But that year he only had 4.2 yards per carry, even when he ran for the 1239.
I was going to say he was a legit potential 1,000 guy.
But he also had 80 receptions that year. Last year he had 50. How you get away from different offense. Because they gave I don't remember the head coach last year, but he was a one and done.
Yeah.
And probably rightfully so. You only throw the ball to David Johnson 15 times when
you don't deserve a position.
Yeah. I mean that's barely bell cow numbers right there. I mean that's bottom of the barrel bell cow numbers. Does David Johnson does he get thrown into the top 7 running backs scenario?
I don't think he will.
No.
I think he's going to – I'll say this. I believe he'll probably – I think there's a good chance that he finishes higher than where he gets drafted. How about that?
I think he's probably going to slide a little just because of the amount of running backs.
He's gonna be in the second round. He'll go in the second round, I believe, because there's the 5-6 running backs that we've been talking about, and then you've got your 5-6 wide receivers plus your quarterbacks. He's going to be a second potential. Oh, dare I say a third?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Somebody's probably going to overdraft him, and people are going to overdraft him in some leagues and actually get him into that top 7,
and
which I don't think they should.
And some people could potentially get an absolute steal.
I just don't think it's going to be a very good offense, next year. And David Johnson's he is not a spring chicken. He is 27. He'll be going on 28 during the season. So we'll see. You know, that wrist injury he had a couple years ago was an absolute fluke. You know, how are their wide receivers going to shake out there, Jarvis?
I mean, you hit on Fitz. I mean, this is going to be his last year. You know,
734 yards last year for Fitz.
That's a big drop off from what he's normally used to. You know, we got the emergence of Christian Kirk. Now, can he take that big, second year step up? Not surprising that he didn't come out and make a splash in his first year. Rookie wide receivers very seldomly come in and make a big splash
with a rookie quarterback, especially.
Exactly. So
on a very bad team that miraculously, I'm gonna say they cheated to win those 3 games. I have no other explanation.
Overall, just not a lot to be excited about. But if they get Kyler Murray, there's gonna be some excitement there.
Yeah, and there should be. You know, he's a dual threat guy. You know, with his arm and his legs.
Yeah.
One of our league mates, who I know will not be listening to the show, but is a Ricky Seals-Jones fan. What are your thoughts?
I like Ricky Seals-Jones.
Ricky Seals-Jones.
It's interesting to me
34 catches last year.
Yeah, and again, I think that is a guy that was just underutilized, and they kept him on, but they came out and said that they're going to try to move him out into a receiver from time to time as well. He's a big guy, and he's got a ton of athleticism.
I'm still going to put him to the bottom of that big cluster of 10 to 14 tight ends.
Oh, he could easily be a 10th or a 10th tight end, or he could be the 25th.
Yeah, and see, I'm gonna lean closer to the 20th. Yeah, than the 10th there.
I don't blame you. I just he's just a guy that I feel is underutilized for.
I think you just like his name.
Oh, that too.
So, I think that's probably it. You know, this is unfortunately we've gone over as usual, and there's a lot of information to go through here. With the 2 divisions. So we're through to the divisions. Now, what's going to happen next week?
So we're going to hit on the different positions, like the main primary offensive positions, the quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end for the upcoming draft, where we potentially see some landing spots for these top end guys, and we'll kind of give you our best insight as where we think they may be going and what sort of fantasy implications may come along with that.
Yep, I'm excited for the draft. 1 week
from tomorrow.
1 week from tomorrow, absolutely.
Or as they say, 8 days.
8 days. I know I will be imbibing on some suds and more low-carb, yucky drinks.
They're not that bad.
Mm-hmm. So, all right. Well, thanks, everybody, for listening to another podcast of Intentional Streaming. Be sure to like us and subscribe and
hit that bell
so you get notified when we toss up a podcast, or we're gonna kick around about going live maybe next week, maybe the week after, but we'll get back on that schedule again to do that. So, well, thanks everybody. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you next week.
See you guys.